Well, first we're going to try to divide consciousness, and I'm going to start very philosophically in a way, what is consciousness, etc. So, but we'll try to somehow define it, but as you will see, it's very hard to define consciousness. What's that? It's been a puzzle for centuries or thousands of years to humans. What is consciousness actually? What is consciousness? And we won't solve this today. But what we will solve is the medical division. Medical division. This will be pretty clear for you, because we're going to divide consciousness on, let's say, we will group it, okay? Different disorders in one group and second group. Then we're going to go through syndromes. We're going to go through special syndromes that could simulate coma, okay? So syndromes that are similar to, that are coma alike, but are not coma. Then we're going to go through, especially for you, important transient losses of consciousness, and this you should know. Like, you should know it from first year or even on high school, what to do, or maybe to guess what it is. But anyways, so we're going to go through transient losses of consciousness, and especially I'm going to divide it, and we're going to do syncope a lot, which is crucial to know what is syncope and different types of syncope and causes. And maybe then I'm going to compare a bit, we could compare, we'll see if we'll have time, but to compare epileptic seizure and a syncope. What is the difference? Okay. Then we're going to go through brain death. And as the last one, we're going to do a table, and we're going to compare some, let's say, diseases over there, okay? So, let's get to the beginning, and what is consciousness? And this is a very complicated thing, okay? But as we know, do you have a guess how many neurons we have? At least a teenager maybe who still should have enough of them. Can you guess? This is a very rough number, but you should think of in hundreds of billions. We got 100 billion neurons. And the thing is, what you should understand, you all are after puberty, so you already lost some. And as you get older and older, you're losing more and more. But fortunately, we have redundancy of them. We have much more than we need in a way. Okay? Basically, if you do a CT scan of a brain of a 70-year-old person, you'll see how the brain is small, but in many cases, they're totally fine with their mental state and whatever. Then there are some with dementia, and they have even higher reduction of neurons. But anyways, as you get older, as you are after puberty, you lose neurons. You're losing neurons, okay? But can you imagine then how many synapses we have? It's like 1,000 times more. Because typically in CNS, like one neuron has 1,000 synapses, okay? Or it depends what neuron, but yeah, there are really high numbers of synapses compared to the peripheral nerve system, okay? So you see 100 billion times 1,000 still. How many possibilities there are. And this basically tells you why it is so complicated to understand brain and to understand consciousness. But to simplify it, a medical or psychiatric definition of consciousness. What is that? What do you think is important over there? The important thing is to be aware of yourself. That's important. You know it's you. To be aware of yourself, your surroundings, and ability to react to outer and inner stimuli. So basically, someone asks you something and whatever, you have some feelings, you process it somehow, and then you react to it. So that's a very simple and general definition what is, and one of many, okay, what is consciousness. But from the medical point of view, it sort of fits and it's simple and you understand. You're able to react to surroundings, you're able to process it somehow, and very important is that you are aware of yourself. But in a way, you know, like we're living now, it's like you have this inner movie, isn't it? It's like an inner movie with many options you can do. Yeah. So to be aware of yourself, that's very important. Your surroundings and ability to react to outer and inner stimuli. And I'm sure you know, because you're English students, you know Michio Kaku, which this guy, I really love him. You know the name Michio Kaku. He's an American scientist, and he popularizes science very much. And he has, on YouTube, for example, he has amazing videos about space and also about mind. And he really has a very complicated, in a way, but I would say advanced definition. And you don't have to know this, please, forget that. But I want you to see other way how you could look at it. And what Michio Kaku says is that consciousness is a process of creating multiple feedback loops. And this is very important. You're creating, experience, and you're making feedback loops all the time. And it's a process of creating multiple feedback loops to create a model of yourself in space with regards to others and time and to satisfy certain goals. I think it's his definition in a way, but I love it. It sort of brings us to AI in a way. Now, this sort of shows you maybe a model how you could simulate the consciousness. So it's about feedback loops. And it's like, what is a feedback loop? For him, it's like a thermostat, for example. Okay? Only that monitors temperature. Okay? So if I'm too warm, I'm going to sweat or whatever. But this is the one that, for example, flowers understand. They have this feedback loop. It's one of the feedback loops, okay? And the more feedback loops you have, you are more advanced in thinking. So, for example, in his case, flower has like 10 feedback loops, okay? Temperature, humidity, or whatever. Reptile has like 100, he says, and mouse has 1,000 feedback loops, okay? And then humans, they have like enormous feedback loops. And basically, what he says in the definition about space and about time and whatever, look at this way. For him, there are 3 levels of consciousness. And first one, the most important one, is to orientate in space. And that's basically, all the animals, they should know where is their, home and where is their lady or whatever. Okay, so that's very important for survival. Then there is a second level. Okay, so first level is to, let's say, first level, orient in space. Then there is a second level, and that's orientation in society. Society, okay? Society, okay? And that's, it's sort of, if you imagine, for example, monkeys, they know who's the boss, who's not the boss, who's the alpha, who's not alpha. So they are very well oriented in this. And let's say, that chimps are the most, like, the nearest to humans. Yeah, chimps. Okay, and they're pretty good in this. But there's one more level, and basically no one still convinced Michio or other scientists that chimps are able to do this. And basically the third level is to understand time and understand tomorrow. That's most of tomorrow, which is so typical for us. We plan, we're having an exam out of pathology and pathophysics and very soon, and you're planning what to do. And there are still no convincing reports that chimps are able to understand tomorrow. What is tomorrow? Okay? So basically, to rob a bank, as Michio says, that's a very sophisticated thinking in advance. And basically, when a chimp will rob a bank, then everyone's going to be convinced. Okay? But like, not to steal something because the window is open, but I mean, like, to get in and get out and plan it. But this is that you only understand what is so important about, and this is not important for the exam at all. But I want to, like, give you a view how you should think about the society and etc. Okay? But there's another and very old test. So if we forget Michio now, and we'll get more to much more simple test. You know what psychologists do to test animals and to say maybe that they have a mind, they're aware of themselves? It's a very simple test. And it's a mirror test. And the idea is, if an animal looks into a mirror and it's not attacking it, but rather like looking at itself and, like whatever, then they say, oh, they are aware of themselves. Okay? And you should know that even dogs and cats, the domesticated ones, they are able to do this. And out of birds, would you know some very smart birds, which are really like, and I normally in a lecture I would show you a video, but we don't have a time. But you can check it on your own after we finish. There are amazing experiments with what type of bird? Ravens. Ravens are amazingly smart. And they're able to solve puzzles you wouldn't ever guess an like animal can do. And these are puzzles they've never done before. It's amazing. Just put ravens, puzzles, and you'll see. Okay, so ravens. Mirror test and ravens. Amazing videos over there. So basically, and some say maybe they could have like intelligence of the small children. And of course, that's very hard to say. But anyways, it's always debatable. Of course, they were trying to compare, for example, chimps and the small children. And of course, who won? Small children. Okay. So we're really advanced. And would you guess when a child is able to sort of feel other one's emotions? From what year? About? That they're able to empathize with someone, like feel in other one's shoes. When do we see this? It's at 3 years. Okay, so at 3 years, children are able to already tell if someone, what he thinks and sort of, so empathize. Is able to empathize. Okay? So this was a very philosophical introduction, but I guess consciousness needs it. And it's going to still continue for thousands of years. What is consciousness? It's been like this, philosophers, psychologists, psychiatrists, everyone, and you yourself, you're interested in psychology. Anyways, I'm going to now swap to a much simplified way how you should look on consciousness. And that is actually the point you want to know. Because it's from a point of diagnostics and from the medical point of view. So basically, you don't want to know exactly how the consciousness is like constructed, but you want to know how is the patient doing, okay? So, and that's why I'm going to divide now, and that's how we divide it. And it should really help you now to tell you rather what anatomical structure is having a problem. Okay? So, we divide consciousness from the medical point of view on quality and quantity. Okay, so I'll put one side. And so first, quantity. And there are other synonyms you should know. Quantity means vigility. What is that? It means that I'm aroused. That's very important. So I'm aroused. I'm awake. Okay? Vigility. Please remember this term. It's very important from today for you. Vigil. Someone is vigility. Latin word, but we use it in Europe a lot. And guess what structure is responsible for vigility? Which one it is? And I'm sure you know. It's the brainstem. Yes, it's the brainstem. If I will draw it over here. This is a brainstem, and we're going to draw it more times today. And brainstem needs to be well perfused to keep you awake. Because there's one structure which goes through, it's a net of cells that goes through the whole brainstem and even goes higher to thalamus, etc. And this structure wakes you up. And you all know it is what? It's a reticular formation. You should imagine a net of cells, okay? And especially one part of the reticular formation, and that is ascending part, okay? And we call it ARAS. Ascending part of the reticular formation, okay? So reticular formation, very important. And if the brainstem is not well perfused, or there's some compression of it or whatever, and compression is very important for today, because the brain is kept in a chest, and when pressure increases inside the chest, you're having a big problem. If some expansion happens, like acutely or slowly in the brain, means this pressure will, at the end, if it increases too much, impair the quality or quantity. Depends where it is. But anyways, before we get over here, so it's the reticular formation. So basically, if the reticular formation is okay and it's able to wake you up, it works, you are awake. But it tells nothing about the quality if you have some thinking, if you have thoughts. You should imagine someone who has open eyes and just looks around. Okay? But you don't know if he has some thoughts or not. Thoughts are not about quantity. So quantity is about only I'm awake, or I'm in some state which has decreased, that I'm not so aroused. Okay? And you know the terms. You know the terms that define that the arousal is not 100%. Can you tell me one? Or I'll tell you. You heard somnolency. If someone is somnolent, I'm sure about that. So if someone is somnolent, remember somnolent or somnolency. Somnolency or somnolence. That's maybe better. Somnolence. This is exactly the term you should imagine in the part of quantity of the consciousness. Okay. So if someone is somnolent, it means he's sleepy. This happens all the time, actually. But in case you say someone is somnolent, you don't care if he has thoughts or not. You only care that he's awakeable to speech. So if you tell him, hey, wake, he's going to look at you. Or open eyes. That's the only thing you care about. He's somnolent. He opens his eye on voice. Okay, so voice. Then there is a worst scenario and worst case. So on voice or on, let's say, on sound, he won't open the eyes, the patient. And he will open eyes only on pinching or some painful stimulus. And that it's called stupor. But watch out. Over here we call it sopor. Stupor is something else in psychiatry. I think in Central Europe, watch out. Stupor means like not to move. But in English it's stupor. In Central Europe, or maybe whole Europe, it's sopor. But in English it's called stupor. Watch out, there is a difference in terms, okay? We don't call it stupor over here, we call it sopor. And that means only to painful stimuli. Opens eyes to painful stimuli. Stimulus, okay? And then there is another grade, and that is, you all know, coma. And how should you imagine coma? Well, it's a state of unroseable unresponsiveness. Okay? So you're not able to wake him up by anything, and he basically is not responding. Okay? He won't open his eyes. And we could talk about, let's say, 2 levels. And one is that the only way to test this is to pinch them. And basically they won't open eyes. Maybe there was going to be just some reflex, like flexion of the legs. Still you call it coma. So a light coma would be like just a reflex, okay? Flexion of hands or extension of legs or whatever. Or nothing. You could cut his finger off and he won't do anything. Coma is a state of unroseable unresponsiveness. Okay? And there could be a light one, light coma. Okay, there would be some reflex, whatever. And deep nothing. Deep coma. No response at all. Okay? So that could be flexion of hands, for example. Yeah? And of course, you can induce coma like artificially, okay, by drugs. General anesthesia, it's one huge lie if you say to a patient, we're going to put you in a sleep. No, you should say, we're going to put you in a coma, controlled coma. Okay, it's a coma. Yeah? Fine. So, and by the way, still structure, so you should remember, and you all know that brainstem is made out of medulla oblongata, pons, and mesencephalon. Okay, so oblongata, pons, and mesencephalon. Okay, you should know. And it's very much about this structure. With the quantity, you should definitely imagine brainstem, and that there's something with the brainstem. Okay. In contrast to this, then you have a quality. So, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell. And as always, check the description below for supplementary questions and other materials.